Earthling Ed's trauma-based vegan programming. What's up, everybody? Long time no see. Have you seen this video entitled, "Is This the End?" from Earthling Ed? Have you? Before we get into a critique of this video, take a good look at Earthling Ed. How old do you think he is? 30? Early 30s? Late 20s? Check out the sunken in vegan eyes. The Sanpaku eyes developing, not quite there yet, but give him a few years. Are those wrinkles in his forehead? Really? Look how pale he is. I don't know his ethnicity, but he looks like Lebanese or Middle Eastern or something like that, right? But he's as white as the wall behind him. Now, you could never really see his body because he's always terribly bundled up. Even though everybody around him is wearing t-shirts, he's got his bubble goose on. Why is he so damn cold all the time? But yeah, you can't see his stick figure under that bubble goose. The kid is emaciated. Look at that neck. How old do you think he is? Well, he's 24. Jesus. Young, dumb, and full of... well, he would be if he had any testosterone left in that body. The child is 24 years old. He doesn't know anything about anything. Let's hear what he has to say anyway.
Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Before we get into the video, I would like to say a special thank you to our gracious sponsors, because today's video has been sponsored by climate change. If you've lived a life of luxury and convenience, without ever contemplating whether or not your actions have an impact on this planet, and indeed every single living being that coexists on this planet with us, then climate change is just right for you. You see, climate change is an existential threat.
It's cute how he's brainwashing you with the factory farm footage. Because animal farts, right? Because vegans don't fart at all. No, vegans don't fart any more than normal people, right? Jesus. Have you ever known a vegan? Have you ever known a plant-based eater? Talk about farts. But it's cute how he's brainwashing you with the factory farm footage and flashes just for a second the transportation, mining, petroleum industry, right? Probably one of the bigger culprits when it comes to pollution. Not too sure about climate change. That has yet to be proved.
You see, climate change is an existential threat that is guaranteed to destroy this planet maybe within the next several decades. Still not sold on the idea.
Still not sold on the idea. Sold? Are you sold on the idea yet? Are you? It's just something they're selling you.
Well, today's...
why does this dude always look like he's crying?
Introductory Offer to Climate Change guarantees that by the year 2050, there will be 1 billion climate refugees.
Really? He's guaranteeing that by 2050 there will be 1 billion climate refugees? He's guaranteeing this? Wouldn't it be wonderful if some of these casinos offered a line on whether or not this will happen? Whatever the odds, pro or against, I'm betting against, and they better pay up. If these people, these climate change scaremongers, if they're so convinced that this will happen, why not offer a line on it? Why? Because it would be unethical? Because lying isn't? Let us, the people, bet on some of these predictions. Huh? I'd like to get rich. Because I could remember a prediction from early 2000 that said that there will be something like 50 million climate refugees by the year 2010. None of that happened. Not a single climate refugee. There's a different refugee crisis, but maybe that's what they were priming you up for in the first place. Programming you. Predictively programming you. Now, I wasn't alive in the 60s, but from what I hear, the scientific consensus was that we're gonna be freezing today because Earth's temperature was dropping dramatically and something had to be done about it. The UN and the like have made all kinds of erroneous predictions. It's embarrassing that they're still making them. Time and time and time again, they have embarrassed themselves with these predictions. And yet here they are making more. And all these gullible people that are so scared of their own damn shadow keep on believing the nonsense. Probably because they're too young to remember all the previous lies. Just like Ed, 24 going on 35.
Well, today's Introductory Offer to Climate Change guarantees that by the year 2050, there will be 1 billion climate refugees as well as global food and water scarcity.
You know, I could walk down to the river over here. Did you hear what I just said? The river, full of water. And the banks of the river will look just like this. Does that mean that I and the entire neighborhood is thirsty? No. but keep cherry-picking photos of seasonal deserts or plains that flood once in a while, and when the water recedes and leaves all this fertile silt, that's what this looks like, to me anyway, because I get out my fucking house once in a while, and I know what nature actually looks like. Unlike vegans who only keep talking about it, their only understanding of nature is, well, through Earthling Ed's videos.
This is an offer too good to be missed. So if climate change has taken your fancy and you're interested in pursuing climate change, then all you have to do is absolutely nothing. Climate change is for everyone and will indeed affect everyone. So if you're interested, sign up today at www.idonotgiveadamnaboutourfuture.org. Thank you so much to Climate Change for sponsoring this video. And so let's get into the bulk of this video. Today's video is based on a new study.
Here we go. Vegans with their studies. How about a meta-analysis? How about showing us studies that debunk this study? Study.
That was released just several days ago. And so I'm going to be looking at an article written by Vice that outlines exactly what the study is talking about. And so the headline...
We're not even looking at the study. We're looking at an article where the writer pretends that he actually read this study, when all he really did is get a press release from the boss, just like all these other publications, and wrote an article based on the press release. Probably. Where's the study, Earthling Ed? What did they study and how did they study it? Was it the same as ClimateGate? And if you don't know what that is, look it up. That surely will expose your studies. Nonsense.
The line for the study says, new report suggests high likelihood of human civilization coming to an end in 2050.
Does anybody in their right mind actually believe this? Human civilization is likely to end by 2050. Yet another one of these bogus predictions. Because cow farts.
The scenario warns that our current trajectory will likely lock in at least 3 degrees Celsius of global heating, which in turn could trigger further amplified effects, unleashing further warming. This would drive the accelerating collapse of ecosystems, including coral reef systems, the Amazon rainforest, and indeed, of course, the Arctic as well. Perhaps even more worrying, it says that there could be 1 billion people forced to attempt to relocate from unlivable conditions, and 2 billion people would face scarcity of water supplies. Agriculture would collapse in the subtropics, and food production would suffer dramatically worldwide. And this is obviously very alarming, and one of the criticisms being levelled at it is that it's too alarmist, and it uses hyperbole to try and scare people into taking action on climate change.
That's exactly what it's doing, and it's a whole bunch of nonsense. Nothing he said is actually based in science. It's not even logical. If the temperature warms, which it probably won't anyway, definitely not by what they're predicting, because every single time they've predicted this, with this scaremongering propaganda, they've been wrong. All of these predictions are always wrong. But let's suppose the planet warms 3 degrees. So I guess one of the problems would be that with ocean waters warming, that's going to accelerate the death and decay of the coral reef, because presumably the water's going to be too warm for some of these organisms to live in it. Didn't he just tell you that if the planet becomes too warm, people will have to move? Why can't animals move? Why can't the coral reef move? Or why can't these organisms start growing into the colder water that will become warmer? Or exactly how they like it? Why can't organisms adapt to slight temperature changes? Either by moving or just sweating it out. What's the big deal? And if there are cold parts of the ocean or the planet that cannot sustain certain kind of life because it's too cold, all of a sudden they're going to be able to. But all of that assumes that these predictions that have historically always been wrong are even remotely right.
But what all of these studies show, and climate change is of course a scientific consensus at this point.
Scientific consensus. First and foremost, based on what? Where's this consensus? Can you provide some evidence for this? Or are you saying this because some talking head came on the TV and uttered the word scientific consensus, thus it must be thus? Where's the proof for this? I don't have the time to play around, and look, people that are bigoted and close-minded, I'm not going to waste my time trying to convince them. But if you're interested in the truth, just Google this 97% scientific consensus on climate change. Go look it up. It's a hogwash, just like ClimateGate. And even if there were a scientific consensus, okay, that doesn't mean that it's true. In the 60s and the 70s, the scientific consensus said the planet was cooling, that we're all going to be wearing parkas, and not because we're nutrient deficient like this clown over here. And now they're telling us it's going to be warm. There were supposed to be 50 million climate change refugees in 2010. It's almost 10 years later, and not a single climate change refugee. The scientific consensus, supposedly, is that saturated fat causes heart disease. And yet, that has never been scientifically proven. And that hypothesis has been debunked over and over and over again by science. But the scientific consensus says so, it must be so. He's never demonstrated that any sort of scientific consensus insofar as anthropomorphic global climate change even exists. And even if it did exist, all that is an opinion. And his is an appeal to authority and an appeal to popularity. A fallacy on top of a fallacy. Zero proof, zero evidence, because I say so, non-arguments. That's all he has. Because animals.
If we choose to do nothing over the existential threat of climate change, we will in essence be playing Russian roulette with the future of our own species. But instead of the traditional game of Russian roulette, every single chamber of the gun will have a bullet in it. Meaning if we don't do something now to alleviate the threat of climate change and the damage that it will inevitably cause, we'll have complete displacement of our own species, indeed of other species that coexist on this planet with us, and society as we know it will, of course, collapse.
How did he go from perhaps, maybe, to this absolutist language? Even the article that he cites, which is BS on top of BS, isn't certain that this will happen. It's postulating that it may. But now he's speaking like some kind of authority when he hasn't even lived on this planet for even a quarter century. This is a child. He doesn't know anything about anything. He doesn't even know how to dress or feed himself. Look at this poor bastard. You really gotta be slow not to see the deception. Even if his sources are correct, he's still upping the ante and misrepresenting what they actually factually say. But because they're not correct, and these authorities that he appeals to don't have any credibility, all that he's doing is stacking bullshit on top of bullshit. I'm not watching any more of this video because we all know where this is going. It's the same BS on top of BS on top of BS. Scaremongering. Trauma-based programming. He's scaring you into submission. He's scaring and guilting you into doing what he wants you to do. Because somebody paid him to do this. He doesn't give a damn about the animals. If he did, he'd be talking about how his diet routinely poisons, infects with viruses, maims, hunts down, kills wild animals. How come he never talks about this reality? How come? All kinds of animals are left suffering, left to die a slow and painful death. They're starved to death because of habitat destruction, because their food sources are constantly eliminated by pesticides. Not to mention those pesticides also killing those animals, as they are designed to do. If he truly cared about the suffering of animals, why would he reject this reality? If he truly cared about the environment, why wouldn't he talk about agriculture and how it destroys the environment, how it pollutes? Plant agriculture. And what is that behind them? Wooden furniture? Paper books? This guy travels all over the world, proselytizing his religion. One of those airplane trips is going to destroy the environment more than a lifetime of me eating grass-fed meat. Matter of fact, my impact on the environment is probably a net positive. This guy is a walking, talking, flatulent stick figure, polluting so much more than the average person. But because he makes videos molesting cattle and giving you a puppy face, looking like he's crying all the time, obviously that means he cares, right? Wrong. This clown is a joke. He's not here to speak the truth. He's not here to accept reality. He's here to brainwash you with fear-based propaganda, whether it is the slaughterhouse footage or these doomsday scenarios that have yet to come true. Unless you're destroying the planet exactly how he is destroying the planet, you're a bad person. This guy is either too young to understand what's happening, too dumb to know what's happening, or he's just a paid shill. What he for damn sure is not is an honest person. He knows what the arguments against veganism are. He is fully aware of the destruction that plant agriculture causes to the environment. He has to be. But that's never part of his message. Just you, the meat eater. If he cared about the environment, he would care about the environment. Clearly, he does not. What he cares about is that you stop eating meat because somebody paid him to care. He's not an environmentalist. Clearly, he doesn't care about animals. The only thing he cares about is you not eating meat. And in my opinion, that's because he is clearly suffering by not eating meat, and he needs a friend in his misery. This fucker is miserable. Just take one look at him. He is completely and utterly miserable. This is not a happy person, and he wants you to be just like him.